Why do I keep going back to porn even when I want to stop? If you've made promises to yourself and you're struggling with going back, you want to definitely stay with this. We have so much help for you. Subscribe to our channel. If you have a question, put it in the box. You know, why is it that you have made a commitment, you've tried to stop, and yet you go back? And if you look over the period of your life, this has been a pattern. You might stop for a while, maybe days, weeks, or maybe even months, and then you go back. Days, weeks, and months, and then you go back. Well, there's several reasons why this could happen. So I'm going to go through several. So stay with this because you might find your particular reason a few minutes from now. Number one is you have a porn addiction and you're viewing it through the lens of, I have a problem. It's not a problem if you can't stop. That's one of the symptoms of addiction. It requires more. It takes up more of your time. You start losing interest in other activities. You know, you go through withdrawals if you don't have access to it. These are all symptoms of addiction, but one of the symptoms of addiction is that. So if you have a porn addiction and you're not addressing it as an addiction, then you will go back. We're going to come back to maybe some helps on that in just a few minutes. Number two, finding out what type of maybe porn addict you are. There's 6 types. I'm going to run through them really quickly because it might be that you're not understanding why you go back. The first one is the biological porn addict, and that is someone who basically has hijacked their own sexual attachment. What happens is when you ejaculate and you're looking at pornography, whatever you look at, your brain cannot distinguish between real and imaginary. You literally glue, attach to, hunger for, and crave, and want again. Ring the bell, feed the dog, ring the bell, feed the dog. Because your brain's actually getting the highest chemical reward your body can create. And these endogenous opiates attach to whatever they're looking at. So you literally create a neurological reinforcement schedule of ring the bell, feed the dog. And so your little dog wants you to ring the bell so that it can get the chemicals that you've given it probably since you've been 12 or 13 years old. And if you actually did a masturbation history, and I've seen over 5,000 men, and I've done this for 40 years, and it usually starts off somewhere between 10 and maybe 13 years old, and they literally have thousands of sexual encounters with the object world, so much so that sex with a relational person is challenging. And if you're having challenges with that, get the book, Upgrade Your Sex Life. It can help you. Also, there's a psychological type. This is a person who's growing up in a dysfunctional family. Maybe they've been abandoned, maybe they've been adopted, maybe they're being emotionally abused, or even worse, emotionally neglected. No, I'm proud of you. No, I love you. There's a stepdad or stepmom, and there's all kinds of confusion. Maybe you have a mom or a dad who's an addict, and they're psychologically 12 or 13 years old, and so you can't get your needs met. But when you go to the fantasy world, the fantasy loves you, wants you, unconditionally accepts you, will let you be strong or weak, will fill in the gaps of praise, will nurture you spiritually, emotionally, and then give you that chemical release we talked about. But the dependency is the emotion. And so in your fantasy, if there's certain themes that you're making up that the other person is saying or doing to you, you could have a psychological dependence on getting that need met in that space as opposed to the real space. Thirdly, there are people who really it's a spiritual thing. Their pornography is their unconditional love. It is their unconditional safe place. It's where they release their stress. It's where they put themselves to sleep. It's where they engage themselves. They can be fully naked and vulnerable and be accepted and loved. And so that's a spiritual thing. And for those people, they find Jesus or they find God in some way, and it stops. But I've worked with thousands of Christians, rabbis, medicine men, and Buddhists who have found their path to God, but they're still addicted because it's somewhere else, biological, psychological, or what we yet to have to cover. And so it's important that if this is your thing and you do find God and it doesn't stop, it's not related to the spiritualness, okay? So keep reading your Bible, doing what you do, but that's not going to be your solution solely because it's not where your problem is solely, all right? And there's lots of YouTubes to explain more of that. Also, there's someone who is addicted because of sexual abuse. You've been sexually abused. There's two things can happen here. One, is you're using the pornography to medicate that, forget about that, alleviate that, or reenact it. And you can actually reenact it in reality as well. But it's safer to do in pornography. So you choose to go there. And in that particular case, your pornography appetite will be pretty much limited or mostly in the vein, 70 to 90% will be in the vein of something that was similar to your abuse. Okay, either as the perpetrator, having it being role played, or seeing yourself in the victim in the scenario and still maintaining a sexual connection to that. Now, the fifth one is really, I got to take a few minutes to explain this because this will keep you stuck your whole life if you don't understand it. I'm going to say a term, and if this connects to you, I want you to go to the website, okay? Intimacy Anorexia. The website is intimacyanorexia.com. Here's the symptoms. Your spouse would say, you're too busy for them. You don't spend any time with them, just for them. You withhold love from them, especially the way that they like to be loved. You withhold praise. You withhold spiritually. You withhold sex, or you're disconnected during sex, either in fantasy or your eyes are closed and you're gone. Or you actually just don't choose to have sex with them. You choose to have sex only with yourself, or mostly with yourself. And if you're mostly with yourself, this probably applies to you. Also, you're unwilling or unable to, or unskilled to share your feelings with them. You would also use anger or silence as a way to control. You would have ongoing criticism of them. Your spouse would have complained about feeling alone, married and alone. We have a whole book and all kinds of information on married and alone. And partner betrayal trauma, because your spouse is suffering if you have this. But if your spouse has said, I feel like a roommate, I feel like a manager, I feel alone, I feel like you don't love me, and this has been a theme, you definitely want to look up intimacy anorexia, because it might be the very thing that's keeping your sex addiction in place. Because the intimacy anorexia and porn addiction are interconnected. And so if you don't deal with both, you get to keep both. The last one I want to talk about is a mood disorder. And this is legitimate. Okay, you might have a chemical imbalance showing up as depression, manic depression, or bipolar. And so you're using the sexual release that you get through pornography to neuromodulate your brain. And if that's the case, you're going to need to get that identified for sure. Now, those are some of the reasons. Now, let me go back to, if you have a porn addiction, why you would not make it by yourself. Most people watching this have tried by themselves. I was guilty of that for many years. As a recovering addict, I've been sober now for 40 years, tested by a polygraph, no pornography, no sex outside of marriage, no masturbation. And you can be free too. And I've seen thousands of guys and ladies get free. You can be free. Now, you might not believe you can get free, but you've been trying with the wrong tools. You know, you're using a screwdriver, what takes a pair of pliers. And so if you have been doing it all by yourself, that's why you are repeating. In recovery, we have what we call the 5 commandments, and I would definitely follow these. You know, pray, regardless of your religious background or lack of it, God help me stay clean. Read literature related to pornography addiction. I highly recommend our book, The Final Freedom. It will give you the 6 types and a path to start recovery, as well as the 100 exercises. Now, also, meetings. You're going to need to be in group. You need to have accountability and community. And if you don't want to go to a local group, call my office, 719-278-3708, and see if you can get in one of the 50, 60 phone groups that are available. Now, also, you're going to need to call the people in your group, okay? And these are gender specific. Men go with men, women go with women. So you're calling someone of the same gender, checking in every day so that you have support through the rough days and you have community on the good days, and you can give support when someone else is having a rough day. And it works together. The 12 step says we admitted that we're powerless. We is how we get better, no matter how smart. I have had a billionaire in my office. I've had mega millionaires. I've had famous people, famous athletes in my office in Colorado Springs doing 5-day intensives. And that's a real great way to jumpstart your recovery. If you haven't done anything, that would jumpstart it and put you way ahead of the curve. And if you want to do that, just call my office, 719-278-3708. The phone number's in the description. And you can actually expedite your process. And lastly, pray again. So pray, read, call, meetings, pray. That's the beginning. There's so much more. There's over 100 exercises. There's counseling. There's intensives. We have the ability in our office in Colorado Springs that you can get some neuromodulation done because that can also help you if you're struggling. So there are options for you never to look at pornography again. Okay, never. I've experienced it. I know you can. I know that you can. I've seen thousands do it. You can. So there's hope. But there's not hope if you keep doing it your way. You're going to have to find a professional that really knows what they're talking about. And let me warn you, you can do what I've done research in big cities, and many therapists say they treat sexual addiction. They don't. Look to see if they're certified. If you want to find a certified counselor, call my office, 719-278-3708. I'm also the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. They can see if there's someone in your area that's been trained specifically on sexual addiction, on partner betrayal trauma, and intimacy anorexia. Because that way the person can really, really help you regardless of why you keep using even though you don't want to. Well, I hope our time together has been helpful. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, listen, there's so much that can really help you in your situation. And also, if you have a spouse who's suffering, so much for them. And if you have a question, put it in the box. We'll get to it as soon as possible.